Welcome to a survey of the Holy Scriptures from the creation of the angels to the New Jerusalem. A survey on the Ark of the Covenant explained. This is sponsored by Harmony House of Deliverance Ministries Incorporated. I'm Bishop Ledoux, and I'd like to welcome you to this new survey that we have for you today. And we're going to be discussing the Ark of the Covenant. And I know the Ark of the Covenant has been something that people have really had intriguement with, or people have been intrigued with it and was interested in knowing the full capacity of what the Ark is and why, or what the significance of it was. And we're going to discuss that today. So we ask that you continue to follow along with us as we go forth in it. And there's a lot of scriptures that's involved in this, but we're just going to give you a survey today. The Ark of the Covenant explained. This is definitely going to explain this thing. This is a unique object that God used back in the day with the children of Israel to be close to them. But what is the Ark? The purpose of the Ark of the Covenant is what we're going to discuss right now. The purpose. The Ark of the Covenant definitely was a Hebrew item, okay? Also known as the Ark of Testimony, and in a few verses across various translations as the Ark of God. It is a gold-covered wooden chest with lid covers described in the book of Exodus as containing the two stones, tablets of the Ten Commandments. According to New Testament book Hebrews, it also contained Aaron's rod and a pot of manna. In Exodus 25:10, Moses received this command to build an ark of acacia wood. Within the ark were to be placed the tablets of the law, which Yahweh was about to give to Moses. Upon the top of the ark, probably not as a lid, but above the lid, was a golden plate upon which two cherubim were raised wings and facing each other covered the ark. From this place between the two cherubim, Yahweh promised to speak to Moses as often as he shall give his commands in reference to the Israelites. Now, this was supposed to be in representation with the cherubims, is the representation as we know from the book of Enoch. It shows that God's throne, there were cherubims on both sides of his throne that watched with him. So that is what the significance of the cherubims are. But let's go a little further in our research. The ark was designed by a symbol of the presence of Yahweh Elohim, God, in the midst of his people, and is a common teaching of the Old Testament. The place on the lid was also referred to as the mercy seat. Once a year, a priest would enter the holy tent and sprinkle blood from a sacrificed animal to atone for the sins of Israel. The old covenant of the Day of Atonement is no longer needed as Jesus Christ, or Yahshua the Messiah, became a new covenant in which his sacrifice on the cross was a complete atonement for sins. Now, let's kind of discuss a little bit about the size of this ark and the dimensions. According to the statements in the priestly code, the Ark of the Covenant was a chest made out of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits, about equal to 4 feet long, and 1.5 cubits wide and 1.5 high. It was covered with the gold within and without, and was ornamented with a molding of gold running all around it. And its 4 feet rings were added, through which the gold-covered carrying slaves were put. And these were staves, not slaves, I'm sorry. Other contents to believe to have been in the Ark of the Covenant were a pot of manna, as we said before, from when Israel was in the wilderness, to remind them of God's love, provision, and care, and the rod of Aaron to symbolize God's given leadership and priesthood. So we see that these things were important, and these were the things that were inside the Ark. So what is the significance of the Ark of the Covenant, and what does it represent? As we go forth in this, we find the explanation of the ark is basically the ark represents our body. It represents Yahweh Elohim and the body that we are in right now, that he dwells in. Let's keep in mind that the ark was a precursor of how God would wanted to dwell with us, but he was doing it this way before he could come down in the form of Yahshua the Messiah, as everyone knows as Jesus Christ. So the body was the wooden box itself, and it had to be made from the best wood. That's why acacia wood was used, and God didn't want anything but the best. And Aaron's rod represents the miracles Yahweh gives to us in our lives, and also the miracles that he used to remove the children of Israel out of Egypt. Every year, the rod budded during the spring and in the fall. It shed its leaves and buds even without the roots, just like a tree would do during the 4 seasons. And this did this inside the Ark of the Covenant. Of course, the Ten Commandments represents how we are to live our lives under Elohim's law. That was a law that was given to Moses on Mount Hermon, as he was given these things to give to the people. And this is the law that we're supposed to use today within our hearts. Of course, the pot of manna represents the word of God. That is to dwell within us. And that, to feed us every day, just like food, the word. That's why it's important that we read the word and continue to have it in our hearts, so that when we need it, it could come back to us if we need to explain some things to people who was unlearned, or even just for ourselves as we go through our trials and tribulations. Exodus 25:10-22. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten them to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert these poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark, and they are not to be removed. Then put the ark, the tablets of the covenant of law, which I will give you. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide, and make 2 cherubim out of a hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherubim on one end and the second on the other. Make the cherubim of one piece with the cover at its 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking toward the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark and put the ark and the tablets of the covenant law that I will give you. There above the cover, between 2 cherubim, there are over the ark of the covenant law. I will meet with you and give you all the commands for the Israelites. And this is what was God had told Moses up on the mount, so that he would be able to have a relationship and be able to give instruction to the people. Also, we have in Hebrews 9:1-10, it talks a little bit about the regulations of it and how the tabernacle would be set once they got out of the wilderness. But while they were in the wilderness, they did have the tent set up and everything for them, because the 40 years that they were waiting in the wilderness because of their sin, all those people that was involved in that sin had to die off first before they could move forward into the promised land. So 40 is also, we know, the number of cleansing. Just like it took 40 days and 40 nights to cleanse the earth during the flood, and other reasons that the 40 is used. But here's just another explanation of in the New Testament, showing how the ark and the Holy Spirit would enter into it, just like it would into our bodies. Our body is now the new ark. So those are the things that we have to really understand what God was trying to do when he was showing us this. Now, let's go into a little bit of some of the traditions here of what the ark did. According to the tradition contained in the Pentateuch, the sacred ark was built at Mount Sinai and was taken by the Israelites along with them to Canaan. When Israel had been conquered by the Philistines, the ark was taken from Shiloh in order that Yahweh should aid his people. When Philistines yet conquered and captured the ark, the many misfortunes that overtook them made them think that the possession of the ark was destructive to them, and they sent it back. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we go further into this video, to kind of discuss some of the things that happened to them, and I'll explain what happened to their gods when they tried to put the ark next to the true God. So now we understand that the ark, what the ark was and what it did. But we also understand that the ark disappeared after the second temple was torn down, or actually, when they went into captivity and they was under different captivities of different nations. It is said that the Ark of the Covenant is now in Ethiopia. Now, some people would detest this and some say that it's true. But the monks who live in the small church of St. Mary of Zion, which is in Ethiopia, also known as the Chapel of the Ark, is the sacred Ethiopian city of Assam, are forbidden to go beyond the bars surrounding the chapel. They cannot abandon the task entrusted to them to watch over the Tabor, or the tablets of the law as known in the Ethiopia, until the day they die. According to the book of Exodus, the tables of the law contain the 10 commandments, which we know, God given by Moses on top of Mount Sinai, so that this thing dated back from 1440 BC. And the legends, part of the common knowledge of tradition in northern Africa and some regions in the Middle East, attribute supernatural power to the tablets. Around these legends, some others were woven into the alleged Nazi obsession with occultism and relics that we give Indiana Jones and his famous missions. And as we know, this is just fictitious about the Indiana Jones deal, for the movies. But the truth is that after the destruction of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, nobody knows for sure where the ark is. But I believe that the ark is over in Ethiopia. But people have never seen that because the monks have kept it sacred in the St. Mary of Zion church. And when you go over there, you can go on the outside, but you can't go in. The monks that are there until their death. When they're assigned to that duty, they stay there until they die. Here's a picture of the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. Now they have a new version that's built next to this one, but this is the version that's next to it, where the alleged ark is kept. Now, according to tradition, the Church of St. Mary of Zion contains the Ark of the Covenant. And over the centuries, however, the church has been destroyed and rebuilt several times. Like I said, the church has this thing, and it's been there ever since. And now the last time anybody has ever seen anything, it was like in 1965, where they had any thought. I believe that the ark is there. I believe the Ethiopians have it. They've been using the books that were not in the canon for years, and I believe that they have access to it. But of course, we will never know because no one can ever go inside where the ark is, and they kept it under lock and key so that no one can ever actually see it. So it's urban legend that it's there. But for those of you who have an open mind and can think that it could be there, I believe it's possible. But some people may think it's not. Some people think the ark is a myth and that it didn't exist anyway. Church of Our Lady of Mary of Zion continue. According to the tradition, like I said, the Ark of the Covenant was there. Only the guardian monk may view the ark in accordance with the biblical accounts of the dangers of doing so. As we know, if anybody ever came around the ark or touched the ark, they immediately died on sight, because this is a place where Yahweh Elohim dwelled. So it had to be sacred, and no man could see God. No man could touch God. And when they did, it was they had to be he had to be in a body that man could be able to withstand or even comprehend it. So this is the reason why they say that they don't believe that the ark is there. But the guardian monk is appointed for life for his predecessor before the predecessor dies. If the incumbent guardian dies without naming a successor, then the monks of the monastery hold an election to select the new guardian. And whoever is selected, they're there until their death as well. So I believe that this is true. I don't see why they would have to fabricate this or keep this going, for what reason. But a lot of things happen and people just don't understand. They just want to have their own observations of what things are, because they don't have the open mind and the open heart of God to be able to understand that anything is possible with him. Anything. So let's discuss a little bit about the power of the ark. Why is it so important in what it did for those who were around it? The ark was a very powerful thing, and it's not the ark itself that was powerful, but it's God that dwelled among the ark that gave it its power. And the power of the ark, again, like I said before, the Ark of the Covenant is more than biblical history. It is mythical, elevated to soaring heights of fantasy and legend above. After disappearing centuries ago, people have long sought to discover the truth about it. Even Hollywood elevated the superstardom by making the primary focus, like I said, in Steven Spielberg's blockbuster, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. While a fun time, it was a fun time seeing it in the film, but the film failed to capture the spiritual significance of the golden chest because it disappeared. Many misconceptions about God's ark arose. While the Bible is silent on the ark's ultimate fate, there are still centuries of history discovered in the Bible that details its construction, use of worship, and how its presence testified to the power of God. So, they may not tell you in the 66 books, and I have yet to see in the other books that are out there, if there is an explanation of where the ark went. It might even have explanation in the Maccabees, because there's a lot of stuff that's written in the Maccabees, which I have not gotten a chance to read yet, but I'm going to get to that and find out more research as I go forward and find out, because I think there is some history. It's just that when you limit yourself to the 66 books that we have in the canon, it leaves you in a lot of shadows, a lot of holes in the truth. The Ark of the Covenant, like I said before, itself was not necessarily holy, but Yahweh's presence made it so. It can be easy to assume that the gold-plated special vessel that held the law, the symbol of priesthood, and the proof of Yahweh's provision held a special, perhaps mystical status. However, what truly made it special, what made it important, was the actual manifestation of Elohim's presence. The mercy seat served as an actual seat for Yahweh in the tabernacle, and eventually in Solomon's temple. Here Yahweh's spirit indwelled and filled the space as a cloud. The true power of Yahweh rested upon the ark, and the ark served as the altar once a year for a sacrifice for sins of the people. Because Elohim's spirit came in all his glory, few could come into its direct presence. Once a year, as we said, the high priest on the day of Yom Kippur and the Day of Atonement, the high priest entered the temple and sprinkled the blood of the sacrifice upon the cover of the ark. This action atoned for the sins of the whole nation. But if that high priest had any kind of negativism or anything that was going on with him and hadn't repented from it, he would die on the site. And they used to keep a long rope on the legs of one of the legs of the high priest, so that if he died while he was in the presence of God, they could pull his body out. Today, Christians believe Yahshua the Messiah, or Jesus the Christ, and they believe, of course, that he serves as the high priest, as the ultimate sacrifice for dying on the cross and being resurrected. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of Yahweh's grace. And this is in Ephesians 1-7. And as I kind of went over a little bit earlier, the enemies of Israel stole the ark, and as an act of aggression and conquest, but they found out later that they should not have done that, because they stored the ark. The Philistines stored the ark with the rest of their idols in the room that they had, the idols of all the gods. The Philistines captured Yahweh's ark after the battle of Shiloh, where the sons of high priest Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas was killed. It did not stay in one place for very long, as disaster seemed to strike the Philistines wherever they moved what they believed to be a war prize. They had hemorrhoids to mice, and no matter where the Philistines moved the ark, trouble followed. It accumulated in them putting the ark in the pagan temple, and the statue of their false god Dagon was found prostrate before the ark twice. The second time, the arms and the head was broken off from that idol. 1 Samuel 5:4 says, and the head of Dagon and both his hands were lying cut off on the threshold. And the Philistines only kept it 7 months. Notice the number 7, according to 1 Samuel 6:1, because of all the troubles that befell the cities that held Elohim's ark. So you can't play with God, and when he is around something and using something, it's his and his alone. When they did get the ark back, King David danced before the ark of the covenant when it came to Jerusalem. In the last years of King Saul's reign were tumultuous and bloody. When David came to the throne of Israel, he had to take Jerusalem from the Jebusites and fight both back and attack from the Philistines. After these victories, David felt led to bring the Ark of the Covenant to the capital city. Through it had a brief 3-month stay in the house of a man named Obed-Edom, It was finally ushered to David's city. So joyful was David, the Bible records, as David danced before the Lord with all his might, wearing a priestly garment. 2 Samuel 6:14. The Lord's presence should still inspire us to rejoice like David's today. For today we do not need the ark to experience it. He lives within us. That's true. But the ark had its significance, what it needed to do for that time, because he had not come down in the body yet to atone us from the sins for the last final time. Even though it was told to him and prophesied to Adam all the way up into this time, it was not done yet, so he had to dwell the way he dwelled in the ark. So in conclusion, so where does the Ark of the Covenant get its fearsome reputation that lead to its portrayal as a weapon in the Raiders of the Lost Ark? There are two incidents in its history that most likely inform this portrayal, where the Lord struck down people who did not treat the ark with appropriate reverence. One of its towns in Bel Shemiz, and once with a man named Uzra. In the book of Numbers, Yahweh gives an explicit command that only Levites may handle the ark. I say again, only Levites may handle the ark, and that if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. Numbers 1:51. In both instances, Israelites who knew the law chose to disobey and interact with the Ark of the Covenant contrary to Yahweh's word. The Ark of the Covenant acted as the symbol of Elohim's God's holiness, and not abiding by the rules set forth brought about his wrath. The power of the ark was not in the thing itself, but in the wonder of majesty of Yahweh, whose presence once rested there, but now indwells within each believer. So the ark was important during the time it was, and it still is. And if it is in Ethiopia, then so be it, it be there. But my question would be, does he still come to the ark? Or is that a vessel just sitting there as collecting dust? You be the judge on that. We thank you for your time, and we thank you for coming with us and listening. As we do these videos, we'll continue to ask you if you have any questions, or if you need anything from us, just contact us and we'll be happy to help you out.